Hey everyone, welcome to Fly Tying Tuesday. Brady with you once again to tie a fly. Today we're doing a nice big juicy dry fly. This is the user-friendly from Andrew Grillos. Going to do a green drake variation on it today. Just a great pattern from the creator of the Hippy Stomper. So a fly that everybody probably knows pretty well. User-friendly, I think it's a little less known, but definitely a good one to have in your box for those summer months when you got terrestrials or big flies on the water that you want to imitate to get that thrill of the dry fly take. So let's get started. And we're gonna tie this guy today on a nice all-purpose hook from Fulling Mill. Fulling Mill, a new product line to the AvidMax catalog. If you haven't seen the site in the fly tying category in a while, we have added a lot of material, so definitely something to sort of dig through and look for stuff that you might have been in need of before, or maybe something that just catches your eye. But this is their FM15. It's an all-purpose hook in bronze. It's a medium wire, but since we're using so much foam on this fly, we can get away with that. And then it is a nice sprout down eye, traditional hook otherwise. So to start out today, we're just going to dress our hook with some UTC 70 in brown. Need a nice strong thread for this, but don't have to go overkill. I find the UTC 70 works just fine. And we're gonna go on back and start out with a little bit of dubbing. And this is just a tail prop. So a very small amount. I'm using some Nature Spirit. This is their fine natural dubbing. It's the gray olive color today, which is a great color for a green drake variation. It's a very long, fibrous dubbing, but it noodles really well. So it's nice and tight, which is what you want for a dry fly. You want something that's not gonna saturate too easily, stay buoyant longer, such as a super fine. This is a good option from Nature Spirit. And we'll get just a nice tight dubbing noodle here. And like I said, we're just gonna build a little ball on the back end of this. And all it's gonna do, it'll be a transition into the body for us, but its main purpose is to prop up our tails. And keep this in control here. There we go. And those tails today are going to be some Mayfly tails. So there's a nice synthetic option. A very fine, stiff tail. And he uses 2 fibers on either side. So we're going to put 4 in total. So we'll grab some off and marry them up. Kind of an interesting substitution I've seen for this is if you have some paintbrushes at home. A lot of times those fibers are basically the same thing you're going to have here. I'm going to tie that in on either side a little bit longer than the hook shank. I like a nice long tail on the green drake imitations that I tie. But we'll work that right up onto the ball, kind of crossways, so they stick up and out really nicely. We'll do the same thing on both sides. Green drakes being some of your largest mayflies, at least here in Colorado. Really good, fun time if you hit the water right and the trout are keying in on the adults. So nice big dry fly you can see in that Mayfly family. So we're just going to make sure we get those to a similar length and nice and secured. So splaying out nicely off either side, and then we can trim out the butts. From there, we're going to add in the buoyancy. And that's some 2mm foam right on top here. I like to, I do so much with the Chernobyls that I tend to just cut a whole bunch out. And then this nice oval, small size Chernobyl tends to lend itself nicely to this pattern. Even though you really just need a rectangular piece, I tend to just use what I have pre-cut. Helps with good consistency as well when tying these in. And I'm gonna tie it in. We're gonna secure it down real nicely. The abdomen of the fly, so we'll kind of capture it back a ways from the eye, you know, 2-3 hook eyes back to leave ourselves room up front for the thorax. But capture it down and then really wrap snug, keeping it right on top. And we're gonna go right back to where that dubbing ball is and almost on top of it, so that we get a pretty nice smooth transition underneath. And kind of snug everything in place here. Real tight, firm wraps. And then we'll come through and dub over top of it. Same dubbing once again for the body. We'll need quite a bit more to bulk it up. And this dubbing, it can kind of absorb some of this wax, but as long as you sort of keep the fibers long ways as you create your dubbing noodle, you can still get that nice tight dubbing rope out of it. Andrew likes more attractor style a lot of times for the dubbing. I think on this green drake, a real natural color works great. But if you think about your Amy's amps and what you see a lot of times there, you can come up with a whole variety of color options to tie this fly. Be aware of that bottom piece. You want to make sure that your first few wraps sort of blend nicely underneath. And that's a good start. I'm going to bulk it up just a little bit more from there. Do a second noodle back and forth. And taper it up just a little bit up towards the front. Again, leaving ourselves plenty of room for the thorax. So now, sort of kind of similar to a Hippy Stomper, we're going to pull this rearward on over and capture it down. And we just want to make sure we get it sort of in that right spot, and then we can do some securing wraps on it. And this is kind of the fun part of this fly, is the segmentation. It's where the user-friendly really becomes unique, is the segmentation wraps that we're going to do from here. So starting out, we got just some straight wraps going straight down, securing it in place. We're going to come up right about to that halfway point on top, and then sneak rearward and do an X wrap back on it. So we'll go back like so, and then come straight up over to where that wrap lands, like that. We're gonna repeat that process a couple times here. So underneath you want a nice straight wrap, on top we're gonna X wrap it. So we'll do it again, like so. And two more times here, back, straight, back, straight. So now we've done it halfway. So on top we got half of our X wrapping, and on bottom we got nice straight segmentation. We're gonna go forward and do the opposite. So that first wrap is gonna make that X, come down, And I always like to watch myself underneath to try and make sure that I'm lining them up nice and square where I wanted them to be. And then up top, X-wrap, straight underneath. And then again, X-wrap, straight underneath, and one final one to where we started. So it gives it just a, tail doesn't like me today. Gives it nice wraps up top, and then just a really cool segmentation underneath. From there, we're gonna sneak underneath and work just up to the front, leaving ourselves a little bit of room behind the hook eye. We'll take that foam, sort of pinch it, and capture it down. And then we're gonna walk back and smash it all, creating ourselves a little bit of a working space here. So we're gonna flatten it all out, compress it down, and that's gonna be where we're gonna tie in our wings and our legs. I'll go back a little bit more, give myself a little bit more room here. There we go. For the hackle of this fly. And for that, I'm using just a whiting cape. This is a nice dun cape. Great quality feather, as usual from Whiting Farms. So we're just gonna find the right gauge for this size 8 that we're tying here. Kind of measure that out. Use your hackle gauge. You can use your barb. Looks about right. And we're gonna tie this in and then leave it hanging out the back until we're ready for it. I always like to sort of X-wrap my hackle feathers because it keeps them nice and perpendicular. So I'll do a couple that way and then in front. And then what I do is I'll pull real tight and kind of wrap that stem down before I go to clip out the extra. Keeps it in there nice and snug, and then also positioned, ready to be wrapped. So we'll hang that out in the material clip for now and work on some legs. These are round rubber legs in tan. And just kind of look nice on this natural colored flavored pattern today. So we're going to add those to either side. And we'll secure one here, a couple wraps, and then I always clip this one nice and long, leave myself some working room there. Do the same thing on the other side. Secure it in place, and now we're going to walk forward over the top of those. Right up to where we're finishing things off here. Do them one at a time. I always wrap them together. And then we'll go on back and we're going to add a wing. Again, clip it a little long. The wing is some Antron or sparkle emerging yarn, any sort of polypropylene material. So I have my sparkle emerger yarn here. It comes on the hank when you get the sparkle emerger yarn, but it still sort of has a determined kind of, this one's been used quite a bit, but you can kind of break it down into what you would get off of this spool, right? I know a lot of people really like the spools because it's a certain diameter of material. You can kind of find that within the clump of Antron yarn as well. So I'm going to take one whole clump and actually fold it over and double it up like so. And then we're going to tie that in right on top. And true to fashion, sort of crosswise, laying flat, and then we can come over and X-wrap it to get it to be nice and centered in that working area. And then we're going to post it. So we'll pull everything straight up along with the thread, and we'll wrap around it just a couple of times, creating a bit of a post. So we don't want to overdo it because we're still going to split the wing on this. Just kind of gets it to ride nice and high on this pattern. And we'll trim it to a working length for now. Might trim it down a little bit more than that when we're ready. From there, we're going to lay a base, and that's just a little bit more dubbing. So the fine natural dubbing, once more, dub up a noodle and work this area a little bit. So again, real tight, thin, fine dubbing noodle. And I like to just kind of fold that forward. I'll work behind the legs one time at least, and I'm just trying to make sure that underneath I got a nice smooth transition of dubbing. We are going to hackle this as well, so this dubbing won't show real prominently, but the more we can kind of make a nice transition, the better. I even want a little bit more. There we go. That's better. And pull that wing out of the way forward until we're ready and get to the right spot to sort of cross through it. And some more dubbing. So once we're in position, I'm going to cross wrap one more time through the wing. So we'll go in front of it there, back behind, and then right in front of it. I'll lay down a few wraps. Need more dubbing. A few wraps in front of it to kind of prop it up even more so. And the hackle will assist with that as well. There we are. Take that forward. Just check it out underneath. Don't want to crowd that front too much. Already getting there pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and trim this out just nice and square. Trim out the head. Clip the legs a little bit too, just get everything a little bit shorter, easier to work around. And then we'll bring our hackle forward. I don't want any of these feathers to lay flat, so I'm going to trim them just a little bit there, and then we can palmer it. So we'll palmer, sneak once behind the legs there, and then right in front of them. Keep that wing forward for now. Four or five wraps behind, and then we'll sneak a few in front, right up to where that thread is waiting. capture our hackle. Like so. Trim out the extra. And then we're gonna sneak underneath everything right behind that hook eye. Couple wraps in, and then some whip finishing up and under. To lock her down. Last thing we're gonna do is sort of trim it down. Tail's still bugging me, kind of cocked on me a little bit, but that's all right, it'll still fish. Trim our wing to start. Want a nice big wing, but don't want to overdo it. Green drake wings are some of the most large and elegant. And then also underneath here, we're gonna trim some of this hackle. Gonna come in, and the idea for this fly is to be a nice low riding attractor. So we're actually gonna trim out all the hackle on the underside to cater to that. So while it's a super buoyant fly, the idea is to get it riding nice and low in the water. So cool little dry fly pattern from Andrew Grillos. Hopefully I'm saying his last name correctly. Umpqua feather merchant, fly tying designer. It's a nice one out of his catalog. Just a cool oversized Mayfly adult. You could tie them way down, but I feel like it caters nicely to the larger ones, these green drakes, the hexagenias, that kind of stuff. Or a terrestrial attractor. Just a big old fluffy dry fly, something that's easy to see on the water, both for the fly fisher and for the fish. Cool fly to whip up in the vise, have ready in your box for your dry fly season. The user friendly.